He's only done like 100 of these.
Boys and girls, welcome to another special episode of Herschel Talkers. We got Big Sean back. Also, rate and subscribe. Try to get those viewers up, subscriptions up. We're on YouTube. Follow us on Herschel Talkers. Sean, how we doing today? And we got special guest, our buddy Scott, huge Ohio State alumni, a huge Ohio State fan, and he likes to troll the SEC. Hey, Paul, how we doing today? Anyway, how we doing today, Scott?
Oh, gentlemen, I'm doing fantastic.
All right, thanks for joining us. We'll jump right into it. We're going to talk a little Georgia Cincinnati since this is a Georgia podcast. Then we'll get into the meat of the show with our special guest, Scott. Well, we got Georgia versus Cincinnati coming off Vanderbilt. I believe it was 2 weeks ago. Had to cancel due to COVID reasons. Georgia is a 7-point favorite. How motivated is Georgia going to be? We did have some opt-outs. 7-point spread. Sean, what's your thoughts on the game? We're playing Friday, 12 o'clock. I feel like we're the appetizer before the two playoff games. What's your thoughts on what you want to see?
Well, first of all, it's like the story of our life, right? But
we are.
When we spoke a couple weeks ago on the podcast, I said this was probably the matchup I wanted least for a number of reasons. But I think the primary one is that I think this is a game where Cincinnati's got a lot of advantages. First of all, if we're honest, I don't really think Georgia wants to play Cincinnati. There's not a lot of prestige or makeup to it. Certainly, I don't think we lived up to expectations this year. We kind of saw how that can be an issue in bowl games under Kirby Smart. But 3 years ago when we lost the Sugar Bowl to Texas and really just didn't kind of show up.
Hey, we'll say this too, Sean. Quietly, Kirby Smart is 3-1 in bowl games. Just saying. The only one is the Texas game.
Yeah, well, but point being, I think that was kind of a similar scenario where it was coming off of the national title game year. Yep. People were thinking we should have been, in the playoffs, and we weren't, and we clearly didn't want to be in that game. Yeah. And I think this is probably something similar. I think this is where we're going to find out a lot. And Scott, you kind of turn it over to you to talk a little bit more about Luke Fickell. But I think this is where we're really going to see how good of a coach he is, because I think this is a game where you can, if you're him, it's a great way to kind of get your program on the map, similar to maybe what Boise does. And, get yourself probably in conversations for the play next year. I mean, if you, beat us, then you can actually say, you've beaten a big, Power 5 school, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's right, Sean. I mean, my thoughts on it, Luke Fickell used to be a defensive coordinator there at Ohio State. Was defensive coordinator under Urban as well, when we won the national title in 2014. He was the interim head coach. So that's the last time Ohio State lost to Michigan. 2011. We only had 6 wins or whatever it was. Wow. So he wasn't ready for a program of that size. You're kind of seeing that down with Tom Herman down there in Texas. Maybe he's not ready for a program of that size, but a school like Cincinnati is a great place to start. And to your point, how much is there for Georgia fans to look forward to? It's, you have losses against your biggest opponents this year, Florida and Alabama, where you've got Cincinnati. Hey, they win this, you beat the SEC. So there's more on the line for Cincinnati than what there is for Georgia. So you're going to find out, how motivated, Georgia's going to be to come into that game as compared to Cincinnati.
Yeah. I completely agree. Coming from a Georgia fan, looking at the stats, they're actually Cincinnati is number 11 in total defense, I think, and number 7 in scoring defense. Lesser opponents, of course. JT Daniels has been hot recently. We finally got us a quarterback. We do have some opt-outs. I think we have 5 or 6. So I guess the motivation. And it looks like their guy, what's his name, Ritter, is a dual threat. He can run around and extend plays. Not the greatest numbers. 17 touchdowns, 6 picks. But they have to put up some numbers. But I just felt like at the end of the day, this might be we have more talent. I think being in Atlanta, I know it's COVID year. We'll probably have some pro-Georgia fans, so I think that'll help. But I'm going to go with covering the spread. I know it's 7. I'm going to go with 35-24. Go ahead and make a prediction. I think Georgia it'll be competitive in the first half, and I just think I like Todd Monken. You got JT Daniels playing well. And I think our defense, because we're deep on defense, we got a lot of guys coming back. I like us 35-24. What's your prediction there, Sean?
I guess I'll go with maybe 38-27. 24 Georgia at this point. The only reason I'm really going with that is that I haven't really necessarily seen a lot of Cincinnati. And, as Scott alluded to, Luke Fickell, when he was, when he took over, and again, I understand it's a completely fucked situation that he took over, for and went 6-6 with Ohio State. To me, it's just, it's kind of a bit of a different ball game. So I'd rather just see what he does in this game. It's solely based on, a lack of history for him in that program being in big games. It's really hard to get a barometer for him. So I guess I'm kind of rooting back to just established talent, established coaching, I guess. Scott, what do you think?
I like it.
So I'm going to give you first I'm going to make a pick with my brain, and then I'm going to make a pick with my heart. My brain tells me 42-28 Georgia.
Wow.
My heart tells me 30-22 Cincinnati. And Trey, I just want to make sure that I got this right. I think you said that Kirby Smart is 3-1 in bowl games. Did that loss in national championship, does that not count as a bowl game?
Actually, I counted that year's Rose Bowl because that was, I guess, the national championship game. That is a good question, though. But I mean,
or would you count it more like 3.5 wins because he didn't play the second half?
Actually, we haven't played the second half in any of the Alabama games. Damn.
Well, that's Kirby Smart, man. I'm just going to give you my quick view from outside of from outside of the SEC country.
Okay.
Your excuse for everything can't be you play in the SEC. Okay,
Yeah.
You look at all the talent in Georgia. Thank you for Justin Fields, by the way.
Yeah.
And if you do play a second half, you have a national title. And I know it's been 40 years. So it's been a very long time. And yes, it's not easy to do, but your excuse for everything can't be you play in the SEC.
Hey,
so you should go out there.
Paul.
You should go out there and kick Cincinnati's ass. That's what you should do. Like you did. Remember Hawaii, however many years ago in the Sugar Bowl, wasn't it? And hey, Hawaii, hey, maybe they could win for the national. No, they get their asses kicked. Okay, with no Sean Moreno, I believe, right? So that's why you hire a coach. So Kirby, here you go. Go ahead and put on your Steve Spurrier golf hat. Okay, go out there and get a win. You should win.
I like it. I do like it as a non-biased Big Ten fan. I do like that. All right. Hey, so heart. Let's go. You said your head and your heart. What's your chest say?
I gave you my chest. That's 30-22 Cincinnati. Okay. That's from the heart. My brain says 42-28.
How about if you were betting? How about if you were a betting man? Just betting like.
If I was a betting man, I think you'd go with your brain, not your heart, right?
Okay.
But the only thing I'll say is, okay, what Georgia team shows up? The motivated Georgia team that says, hey, it was a disappointment we lost to Florida. It was a disappointment we lost to Bama. We have these opt-outs, but now I think you got some of these other young kids that can play. The way I understand it, in this COVID year, every single player could come back and get more eligibility if they wanted to. Yep. So you better build on next year. And the best way to do that is a win a bowl game. That's what I would do if I was a coach.
Yeah.
Well, and that actually brings up an interesting point about that. I know we're kind of focusing on the bowl games, but, that whole, extra year of eligibility, because they've got roster size limitations, right? So theoretically, if you're going to return all 22 of your, seniors and then bring in another group of guys, you're going to be way over the roster numbers, right?
Yeah.
Well, let me help you out with that, Sean. If you're worth returning, then they're like, hey, we want you to come back. If not, they got this thing called the transfer portal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If they think you suck, I have bad news for you. We don't want you back. We wish the best for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got you. All right. Hey, good analysis on that. We're moving in. All right, that was the appetizer. I hate to say it. Now we're going to move into the main course. Scott, do we want to lean towards the Clemson and Alabama? Notre Dame and Alabama. Hey,
let's go ahead and let's do a little talk here about Notre Dame, because I know what you're thinking. Hey, I grew up in Ohio.
19.5 point spread.
What's that now?
19.5 point spread. Anyway, go ahead.
I will give you the point spread. I'll give you my point spread as well. Okay. So even though I grew up in Ohio, I hate Notre Dame just as much as some and/or most teams from the SEC. Mm-hmm. So the thing with Notre Dame is I will go ahead and bet. See, now my heart and my brain, it'll be the same bet, and Notre Dame is going to get their asses kicked by 24. Okay, that's what's going to happen because Nick Saban, you can hate him as much as you want to, but he always has this team ready. So might Notre Dame go and make a couple plays early? If you watched that Clemson Notre Dame ACC championship, they had a couple times that they didn't convert, and then it was, it was a boat race. Yep. So I mean, it was just, the beatdown commenced. So if they don't go and do something early, then they're going to get their butts kicked.
Yep.
I say Notre Dame's going to lose by 24. Now, the thing that's funny is, so my brother-in-law is a Notre Dame fan. Of course, he didn't graduate from Notre Dame, but he always talks about how tough it is to get into Notre Dame and all their academic standards. I said, well, look, let me tell you something. I graduated from Ohio State with a degree in mechanical engineering. I'm the first one to tell you, this ain't academic challenge. This is football. Either put a better team on the field, join the Ivy League, or take your ass whipping like a man. Look at Vanderbilt. You see Vanderbilt and Georgia Tech. Nerds, right? Isn't that what y'all say? Nerds?
The nerds, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're good schools to get into. You hear them complaining? No, they take their ass kicking like a man. Now, for Vanderbilt, you got a girl kicker, and that's fantastic. I mean, that's that's great, but that's all you have. The coach sucked, man. Y'all got fired up. Didn't win a game. Your highlight is the girl kicker. I mean, and that's fantastic. That is beautiful. It'd be great if it was on like a good team. So, anyways, I mean, look, man. Justin Fields, Tim Tebow, they were smart enough to get into Notre Dame. They could have went to Notre Dame, but they wanted to go to good football schools. So What do I think is going to happen? A beatdown is going to commence, and I just hope a beatdown doesn't happen after, that Alabama Notre Dame game. Or if there's a beatdown, it's for the Buckeyes beating down Clemson.
Okay. So what's your – how about give us a score prediction, like the actual point score?
Oh, jeez. I said 24. So let's go 31-7.
Wow, only 7. All right. My only thing is like, I like Alabama rolling in this one, but I will say this: that giving up 46 to Florida did show. I thought that defense was getting better. Did show there's some holes in that game, and Notre Dame coming off a loss. I know they got blasted 34-10. Ian Book's a good quarterback. They got a good little defense. I think they hang around in the first half, but I'm gonna go 48-21, something like that. They're gonna hang around, and then Nick Saban's great at making adjustments. He'll drop the hammer. But that defense did show that they were in the Florida game. Florida game's an elite, but that was back and forth. 52-46. Another thing I did want to bring up: do you think them switching it to Texas and not having to travel that far is any type of advantage at all? Or is that a random question? Am I reading too much into it?
So you're saying with Alabama and Notre Dame being to Texas?
Yeah, I guess originally, it was Rose Bowl. They're not really having any attendance or games, and Rose Bowl was Pasadena. And
I believe what the playoff committee said was, hey, under this scenario, they can have. I think they can have more fans in there. I know in California they weren't allowed to have any fans or even family. So now I think they said, hey, part of the reason they let Bama go ahead and go to Texas is because there could be even more fans than I think what they'll allow in the Sugar Bowl.
Right.
Yeah, to me, it's not like actually, I have to get my bowl prediction score in a minute, but to me, I think it's negligible because both fan bases travel. Notre Dame was always kind of a national fan base anyway. Alabama, I think, has become more of one because of just their unprecedented success over the last 10, 12 years. And it's a bowl game too, so there's going to be like a split of tickets or whatever. And there's reduced numbers anyway, so I don't really know that it's really going to matter one way or another. As far as the game goes, yeah, I think it's going to be Alabama probably 24 to 28. I think Notre Dame's probably going to score more than 7 points. I could see them maybe like Trey saying scoring 24 to 27 or so. Yeah. To me, the biggest thing with Alabama, though, is just that offensive line. And really, he doesn't get as much credit as he should, but, the running back, Najee Harris.
Yeah.
Because, the guy's just an incredible running back in and of itself. So he gives you balance there. But he's also great catching the ball out of the backfield. So he's kind of, a great safety valve for that offense as well. I just don't really see Notre Dame having the horses to be able to stop them. And Alabama has a few more athletes on defense than Notre Dame's got on offense. Even if they gave up that number of points to Florida, Florida's offense was great this year too. So,
now it's funny that it's funny how Brian Kelly, he said he was, well, we're gonna boycott the playoff game if they don't let fans, and he changed his tune real fast, didn't he? That didn't take any time. Well, no, we're still gonna go. Yes, of course you were always going to go. Don't lie to us. You just wanted to say that I'm taking a stand. You know damn well you're still always gonna go into the playoff.
Yeah.
Hey, I did want to bring it up with you guys because it was a little, it was a little debate, and everybody was wondering, do you, if you had to pick again, who you think should have got the 4th spot? I know Notre Dame got it, but could it have been Texas A&M? Could have been Cincinnati? Like, do you think they got it right, or they pretty much just made the pick for ratings and money wise?
Well, that can jump in here, and I'll let you finish that. To me, the problem is just it really is a coin flip, right? I mean, because you can bring up 100 different ways to try to slice the banana, right? Because the one thing we do know, though, it's not strictly a wins and losses. The sole criteria isn't just wins and losses, because I think there's several teams in the FBS that are undefeated, right? But I think Cincinnati is the only one that's ranked. Of course, other than
Carolina,
Alabama.
I think was undefeated until they lost their bowl game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's kind of so it's kind of like how you split it. I think the bigger issue is, how do you? And it came down to money. That's why Notre Dame got in over Cincinnati. Beyond that, the big issue is they just need to expand the playoffs because, you're just never really going to know. We don't know really what Cincinnati is going to do tomorrow. Maybe they shock the world. I mean, it's not likely that if you put Cincinnati in the playoffs that they're going to win, but how do you know until you play, right?
Hey, nothing good.
So I was going to say, to quote Tony Kornheiser off Pardon the Interruption, he says the answer to all your questions is money. Okay, mm-hmm. And that's why Notre Dame's in there, because you can hate them as much as you want to, but they're going to bring eyeballs. And here's what I'm going to say to Jimbo. If I've ever met somebody that talks faster, is he an auctioner? Is that what he does on his spare time? He auctions? Because I get it, dude. You talk super fast, okay? But the thing is, if you don't get beat down by 28 to Bama, if you lose by 3, you have an argument. I say, we can probably put you in. But you played Vanderbilt the first game of the year, and you barely beat Vanderbilt. Yeah. So, yes, teams get better and everything. But, here's what the College Football Committee has told us. Hey, we don't like teams with 2 losses, and we don't like teams that have big losses and big bad losses. Yep. Okay? So technically, you could say Texas A&M, well, that was a good loss. Yeah, but you lost by 28. Okay? And then Notre Dame, well, hey, we beat, you beat the Trevor list. You beat, you beat Clemson on a cloudy day with no sunshine. You know what I mean? So, but then when it came back, when sunshine was back on the field, guess what? You lost by 24. Right. Now, we don't like big losses, but, technically 24 is less than 28, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right.
Hey, one stat I wanted to, before we move on, is Notre Dame hasn't won a postseason top 10 matchup for a big game since 1998, if that tells you anything. So,
yes, it's been a long time.
They choke in big – I hate to say they choke in these playoff games.
Indeed.
So,
well, the other thing – my last comment here on Notre Dame, I want to get your all's thought. Has there been some talk? Hey, would they stay in the ACC? Well, if it's all about the money, you're going to stay in the ACC. Okay, I think, and you can go ahead and you can check this, Trey, but I want to believe their NBC contract, hey, we're going to show Notre Dame. It's only like $15 million a year. Okay, so I say, hey, it's only $15 million, but if you're in the ACC, guess what you're getting this year in the ACC? You're getting like $28 million. Now, if money was really important to you, you'd come play in the Big Ten, and you know what? You'd get $50 million a year because of the television contract. So if it's about the money, you go into play in the Big Ten. But hey, as it is, University of Illinois is going to get $50 million.
Wow,
that's crazy.
That is crazy. Wow. Yeah, that's good. That's a good point. But I think they like having that whole I'm special, we got our own network, Notre Dame. But yeah, I think it's a one-off, to be honest.
Indeed.
But should be good. So hey, I think we all agree Alabama will roll. We gave our predictions, so I think we'll be shocked if Notre Dame won. So let's move to the main course, the dessert, whatever you want to call it here. Ohio State against Clemson. First, I want to ask this. I've always wanted to ask Scott. I know we've known each other for years. Where did the Ohio State come from exactly?
Oh, do you want to know? I can tell you the story.
Go ahead.
Okay, so here's the story.
Go ahead.
So here's the story, all right? So Ohio State started out in 1870 as Ohio A&M because, at the time to get government funding, you had to have an agricultural machinery program. And it was also Penn State started out as, Pennsylvania A&M as well. Okay. So now you draw an X through Ohio, and it's pretty much Columbus. Okay. Right in the middle. Now you draw an X through Pennsylvania. Okay. State College is right in the middle. If you've ever been to State College, which, a lot of bad things that happen in Penn State, but it is actually a beautiful place to go and watch a game. I've seen a couple of Ohio State, Penn State games there. Okay. But State College is right in the middle. So they kind of want a central university, a central location for both of those universities. So by the turn of the century, when it became 1900, they wanted to be more than agricultural and machinery. They wanted to be the State University of Ohio, the Ohio State University. And now, how many of our football players know that? Yeah, I don't think very many. Right. But if you go to Penn State and you look at their stadium, it says the Pennsylvania State University, so it's the same thing.
Right. Okay. Hey, thanks for dropping that knowledge. I had no idea about that. That's really good.
Yeah. Well, knowing is half the battle. Knowing is half the battle, Trey.
Did you know that? You know that, Sean?
The more you know.
Sean, did you know that?
No, I didn't.
Okay, we learned something today. Thanks. That's really good.
No
trolling here.
I have a question. I have a question for you guys.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you actually know that football is played outside of the South?
We dominate.
Yeah, of course.
Hey, Alabama, 16 national titles and counting. SEC, Paul.
How many does Vanderbilt have? How many does Kentucky have? What about Ole Miss, Mississippi State? All those great teams. Mizzou, they've been in, Mizzou. Hey, I don't want to get talking about Mizzou because they were the SEC East champs for a long time, coming from the Big 12.
Paul, we got Alabama, though. It's Alabama, LSU dominated.
Well,
I know.
You got one of those right.
All right. Hey, I do like that. Hey, jumping into the game, I did want to bring this. You probably knew this, Scott, but Sean didn't. But breaking news, and Sean's always big on, coordinators making a difference. And this actually helps you guys. You might know this, Scott. What do you think about this? I think 2 or 3. So offensive coordinator Tony Elliott is going to miss the games. Sean, do you think this is a big, and, of course, does it help out in favor for Ohio State? Could be big right here. Kind of like if Sarkisian wasn't coaching for Alabama. Is that a big deal?
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's not going to help Clemson if the offensive coordinator's not there, right? I mean, Clemson's one, advantage they have in that situation is that, you do have Trevor, who's, it's his third time in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And so the thing is he's got experience there, but
he's still only lost one game, Scott. You're playing against the man. Sunshine, still only one game he's lost.
Well, what I want to ask you, though, too, is Skeletor going to be there? And by Skeletor, I'm talking about Venables. Because there's that story out there, that SI article, that, hey, he's always had the right defensive calls. And if you see Ryan Day kind of trolling Dabo, and he's like, yeah, I don't know. Hey, he's a great defensive coordinator, always kind of knows, what the right call is supposed to be. So, I kind of wonder,
tell us really about that. I briefly read that. What was the whole thing with that yesterday? I know you were trolling a little bit. What was that, Scott? I don't know.
So, the story is, and this was apparently written earlier this year. I want to say was it Pat Forday? I forget who wrote the article, but SI article, okay? And they're saying some of the ACC coaches have gone and they've complained that, hey, Clemson's going and doing sign stealing.
Uh-oh.
And, I'm not saying I don't know enough about it, so I'm not saying it's anything like the Astros, but apparently every time they go, they have all these grad assistants and they ask for 30 to 60 different passes. So they're going and trying to get those signs. And so the guy wrote the story saying, look, they always kind of know what offense to be in. And the times they've had trouble with some teams has been when they played in North Carolina, teams that huddle, that aren't always looking to the side. So it'll be interesting to see. Because to be honest with you, I mean, look, I know all these conspiracy theories and everybody loves those and everything like that. Hey, look, at the end of the day, the better team usually wins. But I thought Venables, a.k.a. Skeletor, was just a great D coordinator. But, hey, he very well could be, the Patriots version in college, that the Patriots going to win a bunch of games. You didn't need to go to that extra level to steal those signs. But if you're stealing those signs, I guess Georgia will find out next year in the Mayo Bowl. Isn't that the one they're having Charlotte with Georgia?
Duke Mayo Bowl. Duke Mayo Bowl. They had it today, actually. Who won?
Don't tell me. I've got a DVR. I didn't finish it.
All right, my bad. Sorry.
Every time Wisconsin and Wake Forest get together, let me tell you something, man. I get pretty damn excited. I just can't miss that game.
It's good.
You tell me the Demon Deacons and the Badgers are going to play. Look, I put everything on hold, which is why I still have it on DVR and I haven't finished.
Man, this is how bad it is. I mean, we live in Charlotte, and I forgot about that game being today. I mean, I guess I was working today, but I guess probably no. I don't know. I should have known.
After I tell you about, the team that everybody cares about, Ohio State, Okay, then we can go, and I'll give you my thoughts. I'll give you my thoughts on the playoffs, and it kind of goes into these other items. So I guess we're going to get into the Ohio State, the Ohio State side of things of this Clemson matchup.
Yes, sir. I did want to bring this up. 7.5 point spread. You can see here, real similar on points, real similar on defense. Sean and I were texting, and we were texting with you. I know you were down 21 players, but man, Ohio State looked
22 actually.
22.
Trey. It was 22.
22, and then you guys looked a little rough last week against Northwestern. Sean was watching. He goes, "Dude, if Northwestern had any type of quarterback, they win this game." I mean, Ohio State. So he was kind of off last week. So
here are my thoughts. On the Buckeyes going into
Northwestern.
This game.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank God. First of all, the Sugar Bowl. We're going to be playing on that turf. Because if you've ever gone out and played at the Fiesta Bowl, or you see that, they've got that retractable field. Okay, they'll actually retract the field out into the sun in Arizona, which last year, if you don't remember, is in the Fiesta Bowls where Ohio State and Clemson played. But the problem that everybody talks about is that grass doesn't grow deep enough. So you always see people losing footage. Whereas now the fact that you're playing on that Sugar Bowl turf, I think, is going to help. So I'm giving my quick thoughts last year as I compared to this year. Okay, last year watching that Ohio State team, hey, we had a couple things that didn't go for us. Hey, that's just how the game plays. But I believe that you play that game 10 times, 8 out of 10 times, Ohio State will be Clemson. Now this year might be the other way around. Okay, but I can tell you this much: watching Justin Fields this year, he's playing like Sunshine did last year in 2019. He's pressing. Okay, if you remember watching Trevor earlier in the year, he was pressing, he was trying to go and force things, force throws, he had more interceptions. Well, Fields has done the same thing in his 2 biggest games. And yes, his 2 biggest games are Indiana and Northwestern. Okay, but hey, Indiana was a top 10 team. But I will tell you this much: if Ohio State plays like they did against Northwestern in the Big Ten championship, they're going to lose by 20 plus. Okay, that's a fact. Now we need all of our players back. We need all our wide receivers back. The advantage that Ohio State has going into this game is that they haven't played their best game yet. But Clemson, I think they did play their best game against Notre Dame, meaning that, the second time around.
Right. Hey, that's very, very good point. So how about the update on the players? How many guys are you supposedly getting back? Because I'm sure they're testing several times this week. Any update on that?
The Big Ten and its hypocrisy, that's always changing. I'll get into Kevin Warren here in a little bit. Because his first year as Big Ten commissioner, it's a tough year to come in, and but here's your grade this year: F minus. I'll give you an F minus. I think you have about F minuses. But so the Big Ten, of course, we have higher standards, I suppose. Even though we'd like to change our mind, which I thank God for that, because I want to watch Ohio State play this year. But they changed it from 21 days down to 17 days. Mm-hmm. So now that means Olave is going to be there. I don't know, because somebody could always, test positive between now and the game, which is only a couple days. But I understand they're going to have most everyone back.
Well, and I don't know if you guys heard the rumor that Dabo actually paid like 5 or 6 Chinamen to go down to Ohio State's hotel and just start sneezing all over the damn place.
Is that what this is? Is this podcast about spreading more rumors? Now, was that tweeted out by, I don't know.
I will say this, being from
someone at a high level of government.
I will say this, being from a neutral fan, you can answer this, Scott. How about the Big Ten changing the requirements all of a sudden? Remember originally, like, hey, we got to play a mandatory 6 games to get in. Everybody else playing 10. SEC, by the way, I say gives an A or A minus for getting 10 games for most of the teams in. We started first. ACC started first. I know you agree. You guys relate to the party, only playing 6 games. I know it was a weird year, but just saying.
Well, so here's the thing. I still think there is no advantage to playing 6 games. I have my boss who's a Clemson grad. He says, "Oh, you guys are going to be fresh. You have no reason not to lose." I'm like, we haven't had any continuity. We've had no rhythm. Yeah. Okay, that's 2020. It's a start-stop season. Okay, right. COVID is the reason we only played 6 games. Now we said, hey, you know what? Fuck it. We're only going to play 6 games this year. Put us in. No, you think we didn't want to go and play Maryland, Illinois, and Michigan? Win. Okay? And it'll be 9-0. So this is the only year, okay, that we're only going to play 6 games. So it's not that, here's the thing. Ohio State wanted to play. And I think Iowa wanted to play. And I forget there were 3 schools.
Nebraska.
Penn State, too, right?
Nebraska.
That's right. I think Nebraska was the other one. So, and that's, that's the thing. Just don't set anything. You want to be a quote unquote the leader, right? So the Big Ten was the first one to say, hey, we're going to do a conference schedule, and everyone followed. But there was no reason to go and cancel the whole season. You screwed the pooch, and that's part of the reason that Kevin Warren, his first year as Big Ten commissioner, I'll give him an F. And he deserved that F, because if anything, you should have started earlier, and then you'd have these extra, weeks to go ahead and make it those games, which the SEC did. I think they only missed 1 to 2 games the whole year.
Yeah, Georgia got in 9. We had 2 canceled with the same team, Vanderbilt, probably because they were scared. But yeah, we got 9 in.
So there you go, but it's not, we're not the reason, meaning Ohio State, that we didn't want to go and play more games.
How about because it's funny? How about Dabo trolling, and how each coach gets to have their rankings out, and they put you guys in 11? Is that like a slap in the face to you guys? I thought it was funny.
Well, here's the deal. Dabo DB Sweeney, as I call him, he's just a whiny little bitch. Okay, pizza parties. He slides into practice, and he's a full-time douchebag. Okay, I think Chester Cheetah said it best. It ain't easy being cheesy. So that's Dabo for you. Now give me the heartless Saban. Okay, you see what you get. He's an asshole. Yes, but he's a very successful asshole and the best coach in college football. And you know what? Just about every team would go and take him as their head coach. But that's the beautiful thing about sports. You have a chance to shut Dabo up, okay? And you've waited 1 year for this revenge, and you better go out and play your best game, because so now is your chance. So I think we will see the best version of the Ohio State Buckeyes this year. So, Dabo ranking us 11th, he's just a troll. But let me tell you something. He can dish it out. He ain't so damn good at taking it, though. He's a little bit thin-skinned when they said down there in the SEC. Paul, the SEC, Paul! Oh. They said, was it the SEC commissioner said, hey, what are you doing only playing, you're protecting Notre Dame and Clemson by not having them play that week before the ACC championship. Then we see the old thin skin come through with old Dabo.
Mm-hmm. Hey, and Dabo is the Saban killer. Got him twice.
Well, I guess, yes.
Hey, the thing is, and what's the overall series? I know it's a salty, George. I know it's sensitive, but is it 3-0 against you guys? Clemson's beaten them 3 straight times, Ohio State.
So technically, the old time series is 4-0 with Clemson. Now, I will say with Dabo, because that was the famous.
You should consider that first one, though, Scott, a tie, because you may have lost, they may have scored more points when the clock struck 0, but Woody Hayes gave that guy a hell of an uppercut.
Yes, indeed. They didn't have targeting in those days, so that's something you have to, but he did get kicked out because that was his last game. So technically it's 4-0, but the funny thing is, of those 4 games that we played, all of them were 1-possession games, and then there's one we got our ass kicked, okay? So, but they were all 1-possession games. So, yes, they've had our number. But, it's kind of the advantage for Ohio State is now you've waited a whole year for revenge. So you better come out and you play your best game. Because if Fields presses or they play like they did against Northwestern or versus Indiana, yes, our 2 biggest games this year in 2020, then, yeah, we're in trouble. Now, I was going to give them some of my thoughts on the offense and defense. Would you like those?
Yeah, go ahead. So I was going to say, let's get into the X's and O's. First off, Sean's big advantage, what he always says, is score more points than the other team. We'll get that out of the way. Sean's coin phrase. We agree with that, right?
Yes, I believe that on New Year's Day, the team with more points will win.
Okay, thank you. And that's Sean's line. So getting into it, give us some pros and cons for the Buckeyes against Clemson, and they played them last year, and what you see the difference.
Yeah, so first I'm going to talk here about defense. Yeah. Certainly, as we've already talked about, we need, all our players, or at least if there are some scratches, they need to be, folks that weren't going to see the field anyways, because if we're out Olave on offense, it's going to be trouble, right. So you need, you definitely need Chris Olave to be back. You need Wilson to be back. We've had good offensive line play.
21 a game, which is good. Solid.
Yeah, we've had good offensive line play. We've had great wide receiver play. Where before they usually like to go and spread it around a little bit more. Now it's been Chris Olave and Wilson has been the primary receivers. Now one of our concerns this whole year has been a running back. Master Teague is kind of like your 3 yards in a cloud of dust kind of guy. He's your straight ahead runner. Now Trey Sermon, he's a transfer portal.
That's crazy.
Well, Trey Sermon was a transfer portal guy coming in from Oklahoma. But our concern is, and you all see the same thing down there in Georgia. But Trey Sermon, he's not J.K. Dobbins. He's more of a shifty runner. Now, he had a good time to have his best game by outgaining Eddie George for the record at Ohio State. I think it was 331 yards. Yeah. I guess he finally heard me yelling at the TV, "Run the damn ball," because we couldn't pass. And he ran it for a record. So that's great. Now, what my hope is? My hope is that he's going to be like Zeke in 2014 playoffs, and he's going to have a 3-game stretch in the Big Ten and both playoff games where he just ran for a bunch of yards in each one. But my thought is, and I'll go in the back of the time machine here, he might be like a Tim Biakabituka, the Michigan running back, back in the 90s that ran for 300 plus against Ohio State. So, is this he had his breakout game and now he's going to be great in the playoffs? That's my hope. But my thought is, he might be. He had his big game, and which is fantastic. He set a record, but how is he going to follow that up against a better defense?
Yeah. And then on Sean's really big, and he's watched me. He says Clemson's D line has gotten they're young because they're loaded with 5 stars. They've done really good recruiting. Sean, what's your thoughts on you think this Clemson defense can really give them problems and the Alabama problems, right?
Well, I think what you saw, but I think you saw that last year, when they played, but, really last week against Notre Dame, I think kind of, encapsulates that defense perfectly. Notre Dame moved the ball between the 20s pretty well, but it's once you get, to that 20 or inside the 20 that they have problems because the field shrinks. And it's just tough sledding down there with them. I mean, I think anybody that – if you're going to beat Clemson, you're going to kind of have to do like with what LSU did.
Big plays.
Last year and that. Yeah, you've got to kind of – you got to beat them with big plays and kind of break their will a little bit. And I think that'll probably open you up to be able to do a little bit more down in the red zone. But it's tough against them, because, they play, they rush the quarterback well, obviously, with that defensive line, but they really shut down the run as well, too. It's just tough to do anything against them unless if you're getting it outside that. So, obviously, you're going to need to play a complete game in the playoffs anyway to win, right? But it's just, man, it's tough. You're going to have, I think that a big key for you guys offensively against their defense is you're going to have to get something outside the 20s and probably a lot of something.
Yeah.
Now, I can tell you my thoughts here on defense as well.
Yeah, good.
On defense, one of my biggest concerns is the secondary's had issues all year long. So the concern is that Trevor's going to carve us up. If he plays like he did against Notre Dame and we don't get some turnovers, that's the concern. Now, our D-line has been pretty decent and linebackers have been decent. I still don't think it's as good as last year. One of our best players, Haskell Garrett, yes, he got shot in the face in the offseason. And it was breaking up a fight, though. And he got shot through one cheek and then came out the other. And he played a great year. So I kind of forget that he got shot in the face, and I want to say he made All Big Ten. So he's been one of the stars on the D-line. And you're going to have to go and put pressure on Trevor to go make a difference. Hopefully there aren't any penalties for air quotes playing football, because if you watched that game last year, one of the big turning points, and Shaun Wade went and tackled him, and I don't know what else he's supposed to do, tickle him to the ground or something, when he goes, then we get the penalty and everything. So, but that's a whole other subject, whether they should go. And I've already said it from the very beginning that unless you have just something egregious, then you want to go and kick somebody out of the game with the whole targeting thing. I mean, it's football. It's a violent game. I like watching UFC fights and boxing. Are they going to take all the boxing? Or are you going to take all the punching and the kicking out of those? I mean, it's a violent game. If you don't want to play a violent game, go golf. I love golfing. I don't expect to be punched in the face of them out there. But beyond that, look, it's a violent game. Let football be violent. Unless it's egregious, it's part of the game.
I agree.
See, I actually, on the defensive side of the ball, I think you guys will your defense, I think, will probably keep you in it. Clemson lost. Who was it? Ross, their big deep threat, they lost. And although Rodgers is kind of good yak yardage wise, I don't necessarily think they stretch the field as well as they have in years past.
Yeah.
They definitely don't stretch the field as well as they did, when they won the last year.
Yeah, I think we're having problems hearing you, Sean.
Against your defensive line. I mean, from what I saw, like your defense played, like their hair was on fire last week. And, Clemson's offensive line, I mean, I guess they're good enough or whatever, but I actually like you guys in that matchup.
Okay.
Well, I hope you're right, but we're just, it's going to be interesting. How does the game start out? Okay. So how this game starts out is really going to be a telltale sign. So last year, because if we get down, early, if we get down early, then it could be, like what you saw Notre Dame versus Clemson in the ACC championship. It could be, a landslide in the bad way.
Yeah.
Yeah, one thing. All right, one last little comparison I wanted to Mitch. I know you don't like him, but what do you think about Dabo, Sweeney, Venerables? I guess they're out, against Ryan Day and his staff. What do you think about the X's and the O's comparison?
So Day, his only loss was last year in Clemson, and so he's been, I think he was protege there of Chip Kelly. Good Chip Kelly, not Chip Kelly now. So he was. I want to say he was with the Philadelphia Eagles for a while and the San Francisco 49ers, and then he came on, Urban Meyer's staff. So as far as Day goes, Day's a great coach, and you got to keep in mind he's ahead of schedule because Dabo. Everybody forgets with that. Everybody thinks about Dabo now. Since 2015, Clemson and Alabama have been the best two teams in college football. Okay, year in and year out. Okay, but everybody forgets what was it like the 2011-2012 Orange Bowl when the Dabo Sweeney Clemson Tigers lost to West Virginia 70-33. Can you imagine?
70 burgers.
You scored 30. It was 70-33. Can you imagine? You scored 33 and you lost by 37.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So and that was I want to say Dabo took over partway through 2008. So, and that's when Clemson was still, choking in big games. Yep. So now it's going down to slide and pizza parties. But anyways,
pizza party slide.
So things have changed, but that's interesting because from 2008 till I don't know, 2013, 2014, Clemson was still they weren't who they are now.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
All right, how about you, Sean? Because I know you always look at that. Go ahead. Yeah.
Right. I mean, to me, it's hard to say. I mean, it's similar. I mean, Clemson, obviously, Dabo has got, he's had a lot of success in the playoffs. And, to kind of bring on Scott's point, I think a big reason where things changed for Clemson is when Venables came on as a DC. I mean, that was, Bob Stoops, a longtime DC. I mean, regardless of the whole sign stealing thing or not, to me, it's kind of like the Patriots, right? I mean, just because like the sign or the call doesn't mean you can stop it, right? You guys still have to know what to do and out execute the other teams, and he's very good at doing that. So, I mean, there's no doubt that they kind of took it to that next level and Venables came on. You've still got, and there, a lot of those other members of the staff are there, and have been there for most of the run as well. So to me, that does favor Clemson from that standpoint. But that said, I don't really necessarily, know that that they're better coaches per se than what
more experienced.
Yeah, well, they're more experienced, right? But I don't necessarily know that they're better coaches per se than what Ohio State has. Like you said, I mean, what Ryan Day did, because he kind of had to clean up a little bit of a mess from Urban too. And, they just kind of, hit the ground running. And he's recruited very, good as well. You
could make the argument right now that Ryan Day is recruiting even better with some of the classes that he's bringing in. But as far as that goes, if you bring in a 5-star, that's great. But if you also bring in a 3-star nobody's ever heard of, I want to say Chris Olave was who Ryan Day brought in. That they went to go and scout on a quarterback there, and he was out in California, and they said, "Who's this kid that nobody can stop?" And he was like a 3-star or something, and then he's been, a phenomenal player for Ohio State. So it's really about what are you going to do from a recruiting standpoint. Yes, you want to have those high, look at Alabama, you want to have those high, recruiting classes, but it's also who are you bringing in? Are you bringing the right people to fit your program?
Right. How will you evaluate? Yep. So, yeah, so I don't really know necessarily. I'll put it to you this way. I don't feel like Ohio State's, got, a bunch of Dunskies on the sidelines. You know what I mean? I don't think that is by any means. And there's not really it's not a situation where you've got one unit that's, noticeably stronger than the other. Like before Monken got there for Georgia, it was obvious that, we had a solid defense, but our offense and coaching was a problem. Ohio State doesn't have that, and Clemson doesn't really. Although, again, I do think Clemson's going to have some issues with our potential issues without having Tony Elliott there to help. So
yeah. All right, guys, let's put a bow on this thing and give us a prediction on this game. You got 7.5 point spread, the Ohio State at Clemson in the Superdome in New Orleans.
So I'll go first here. I will go Ohio State 42-30.
Oh, wow.
Ohio State wins by 12.
Actually, I'm going to go close. I'll go second and flip-flopping it. I know, hey, you're our boy here, but, just got to go who it is. It's Dabo and them. I'm going to go 42-31. It's going to be close. Late touchdown by Trevor to put an icing on. I'm going to go 42-31 Clemson to cover. How about it, Sean? You can be the silent majority here.
I'm going to say 42.
Wow, we're all going with 42 here, huh?
Yeah, maybe 42 to 42-30.
Wow.
Clemson. And the only reason I'm going that way is because, how, like you mentioned, Fields has been pressing some. Scott, you brought up the fact that the lack of games has kind of hurt continuity. I don't think having all those players out, COVID related, for the Big Ten title game or since that's probably helped that. So I just think at this point, from what I've seen, I've got a little bit more confidence in Trevor than I do in Fields.
Hey, another thing, Scott, sorry we're going against you. Another thing for us that we got to mention, and just as a Georgia fan, we don't need Justin Fields winning this game in the national title because there will be a shit ton of a meltdown. So
I'm sure you don't.
Clemson fan, and you had Justin Fields, and he made 2 quick exits from the playoffs. See ya in the NFL. Thanks for coming because we don't need to have a meltdown on Kirby Smart. You had Justin Fields and led him to a national title with the wrong team. So that's another reason why quietly going against you.
Here's my question. Do you think that Justin Fields will be drafted higher or your boy Jake from State Farm?
Oh, yeah, Justin Fields. Hey, you know what I'm hoping for? Because I think they're in the 3 or 4. I'm hoping Justin Fields stays locally at his hometown and goes to the Falcons because the Falcons probably get 3rd or 4th. And we need a quarterback. Matt Ryan's getting old. So I'd love Justin Fields to Atlanta. What do you think?
Well, I will say this. Unless something crazy happens, he will not drop outside the top 5.
Yeah, I agree. He's great.
I think he will probably be a top 3 pick.
Yeah, I think it's going to be sunshine, and then he's close 2nd and 3rd pick. I completely agree.
Now, Trey, I have to give you the solution to all your questions, okay? The answer to all your problems for the 18 playoff. Would you like to hear from an expert?
Yeah, go ahead.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So here is your 18 playoff. I need to have – I said that from the first year that Ohio – because also, once again, to quote the great Tony Kornheiser, the answer to all your questions is money. Well, that's why Notre Dame got in over Texas A&M. Okay?
Yeah.
That, and, hey, 24 points is less than 28. But
SEC,
anyway,
Paul, we should have got 2 of them. That's an all-SEC schedule this year. Texas A&M, Paul, all SEC. Go ahead.
But do you think – okay, even that first year when it was Ohio State, TCU, Baylor, that's part of the reason Ohio State came in. So I'm okay with that when it benefits me. I'm not okay when it doesn't benefit me. See how that works? But I've always said from the very beginning that there should be an 18 playoff.
Yeah,
okay?
I'm with you.
And yes, if you win your conference, you're in. So I don't care if some team, from the Pac-12 has 3 losses, you win your conference, you're in. It's kind of like they do in NCAA basketball. Okay, and I know this is breaking news to a lot of the Georgia fans that there's football played outside the South, but this is, you want it to be a national sport, then that's 5 spots. Now, still by all means rank them, okay, so that if the Pac-12 champion, if they suck, rank them 8th, and I would hold before those first playoff games, so they played as home games. Now, the other 3, you got 3 at large. So think about who that would be this year. Yes, if there are 3 teams that are good enough from the SEC to play, put them in. Okay, otherwise this year you can put in Cincinnati and 2 others. Okay, I mean that's how you're going to go, and you're going to grow the sport. But if the SEC wants to complain like, oh no, we only got 4 teams in. If you're the 5th best team, you shouldn't be in the damn playoff.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, here's what I would do when I go to ESPN. I was just like, look, you want to go, and people were driving your subscriptions all the time. If you want to actually grow this, if you want to grow the sport and have more people, I'm talking about with, it also goes, that's not only your 18 playoff, but it goes back to me for a regular season. Okay, so I'm taking a look. I actually have up right now Georgia's schedule next year. I think everyone from the Power 5 conference, and your boy David Pollack spoke about this, former Georgia Bulldog, a little bit.
Yeah.
He said everyone from Power 5 conference should play another team from the other, the other Power 5 conferences. So I'm looking at Georgia's schedule for 2021. They're playing.
We got Clemson.
You've got Clemson, the UAB Blazers. I mean, let me tell you something, man. Georgia is not being a Georgia fan when Georgia is playing, the University of Alabama Birmingham on September 11th. I definitely will never turn into that game. Okay, and you're also playing on November 20th the Charleston Southern Buccaneers. So let me tell you something. I definitely will not watch that one either. And you want to talk about ratings being, horrible? It'll be for that game. You know who's going to watch that game? Georgia fans, or somebody else that doesn't have anything else to do, or degenerative gamblers like Trey.
Yeah, thanks. I used to be, not more.
Think about this. Here's the answer. If you go ahead, doesn't mean every one of them needs to be, a super tough game. But so Georgia next year, you're playing Clemson from the ACC. Okay, you can go play Michigan from the Big Ten. Yes, of course. You can play Michigan from the Big Ten, so you have one easy game in there, right? And then you go and you play, somebody from the Big 12, and you play somebody from the Pac-12. And you think about all, that's what they're going to talk about. People are like, oh no, the regular season. Look at these bowl games right now. Nobody's watching these bowl games. What was it? Nevada was playing Tulane. Who the hell is watching that game? I'm sure as hell not turning in for that game. So if you do that to the regular season, that's going to make the regular season even better. Who cares if the national champion has 2 losses? I mean, if you're playing that from everybody else, because you know what Alabama's going to do, whether you like it or not, they're going to go out and they're going to win most of those games.
Hey, Scott, you guys got Tulsa and Akron. Those are some world beaters.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Well, we also have Oregon. So that's what, I'm looking at Ohio State's schedule for 2021. Take out Tulsa, take out Akron. You got a team from the Pac-12, throwing somebody from the Big 12, throwing somebody from the SEC, and throwing somebody from the ACC. I mean, I would love to be like what it is in Clemson's, cakewalk schedule through the ACC, and play, just, one of those really difficult games like Boston College.
Yeah. I like that question, Scott. It was good. All right, on the way out, one quick one. Who is your Heisman Trophy winner?
Heisman Trophy winner. Who's the wide receiver for Alabama?
Devontae Smith. Killing it.
Boom. That's my guy.
Not Mac Jones.
Second.
Not Mac Jones or Trask.
See, I would give it to Trevor, but ready for this? He hasn't played enough games because he was out for a couple times. For the first time they played Notre Dame.
How about Clemson?
How do you like me now, Dabo?
Okay. Devontae Smith, actually, the first win since Desmond Howard in the 90s. That's who I liked. A couple of weeks ago, when they put his name in the board, he was 3,000-1 odd to win it. Nice favorite, Devontae Smith. Who you got, Sean? Do you believe he wins it? He's been a little skeptical of Devontae Smith because he said Judy and Ruggs were ahead of him last year. Sean?
Well, and I think Waddle was just as good.
Yeah, Waddle.
I mean, I feel like it's going to be Devontae Smith, but I don't necessarily know. I almost feel like it's a bit political where they're like, well, we haven't had a wide receiver in a while, so let's go ahead and give it to him. I mean, to me, the best player on that Alabama offense is one that people talk about the least, and it's Najee Harris. That, to me, is who.
Yeah, he put up some crazy numbers.
I saw that last week in the in the SEC title game. I mean, Alabama was in a fight there with Florida. You know, they could not stop that Florida offense, and you saw who carried them with 6 touchdowns.
Exactly. I agree.
So, I mean, if you want to give it to the Ethiopian, by all means, let the Ethiopian wide receiver get it. But, like, he's not really the best player.
Can we say
the best player on his team? He's not the best player on his position on his team.
Yeah. Can we say that, Scott? Ethiopian? Yeah.
I mean, that's just the country he's from, right?
Yeah.
That's what he looks like.
He's just tall.
Have you seen that guy?
Yeah. Hey, Kirby Smart's talking about they recruited him his senior year. He's 155 pounds. He bulked up a little bit. They said it was just like great athlete, just skinny.
Now, do you want my national championship prediction as well, Trey?
Yeah. Yes. Go ahead, Scott. Yeah, we like it. Well, on the way out, yeah.
I will go Ohio State, Alabama.
Is this your heart or your head?
I'll give you my heart first. Ohio State, Alabama.
Okay.
And 41-38 Buckeyes.
Wow.
Okay, we have our 9th national title.
Alabama!
Now, with my brain, I will say, if I was going to Vegas, how about that? Because I go to Vegas and I bet with my brain. Now, I understand, Trey, when you're in Vegas, you don't use your heart or your brain. You use another part of your body to make decisions. Is that right? That's the rumor.
I've only been once. And I had a little fun, yeah.
Okay. So, but if I were to go and I was a betting man, then I would bet for Alabama to win it all. I just think they're too strong. And as I've said before, you know, hey, you can hate Nick Saban as much as you want to. I will take some heartless Saban because he really is, you know, the best college football coach, probably of all time. Certainly of this modern day era.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I'm gonna go with you too. I'll go ahead and jump in real quick. I'm gonna say, actually, you don't want to hear it, but it's gonna be Alabama and Clemson, the majority here, and I'm gonna go 45-38 Alabama. A little bit more firepower on the back end, but Clemson will make it a game. How about you, Sean? National title.
I'm going to reserve that one until after I see what happens on.
I like that.
Because I'm not completely certain that, again, like I think, and again, it could completely prove to be like a doo-doo theory, but, you know, to me, that Clemson defense gives a lot of people problems in the red zone, and I get that, like, Alabama has an explosive offense. But I'm still not quite certain that with the loss of Waddle that if they're going to be able to score that much.
Yeah.
But let's wait and see how Trevor does because, again, I've got concerns about that Clemson offense as well. Yeah,
man. All right, where it gets the time here. Appreciate Big Sean coming on and our special guest, our buddy Scott, diehard Ohio State fan. Anything on the way out there, Scott?
Go Bucks.
There you go.
Hey, go Dogs, and it should be interesting. And Friday should be appetizer, Georgia and Cincinnati. Then you got 4 o'clock, Alabama, Notre Dame, and then the main course.
Scott, who's your favorite all-time Buckeye, by the way?
Oh, there you go.
Jeez, my favorite all-time Buckeye.
Who do you have jerseys of, or do you have any jerseys? How about that?
I do have a jersey. I have the number 7, which is Ted again when I got it, but it was also
nice.
Chris Gamble's number. He was a cornerback. He was also cornerback here for the Panthers. So he was on the national championship team. Favorite Buckeye of all time, though.
Joe Germain's number as well, was it not?
Yeah, and it was Dwayne Haskins as well. So there's a lot of 7s that have come through Ohio State. Yeah, I think I have to go Eddie George.
Oh, nice.
Favorite Buckeye of all time.
Good dude. Nice. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate it. And please rate and subscribe. Get those numbers up if you're still listening. And that's Herschel Talkers, and we're out.